Welcome to the Becoming babyREADY podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. I'm excited for you to hear the story as told by Christina and Rad about their family creation process. Christina has 2 children from a previous relationship. Rad gave birth to their youngest child, and we talked about how that unfolded for both of them. Additionally, these 2 gems are the owners of Knifey Spoony in Kingston. And they have done so much wonderful work in their community. It's truly important to them to make sure they touch the lives of people on their most important days, but they also meet the needs of some of the more vulnerable members of their community. Welcome, everyone. Today, I have the distinct pleasure and honor of introducing you to Christina and Rad. They are parents who live on the other side of Toronto from me. I sometimes pretend that part of the world disappears because I very rarely go over that way. But welcome to the show. Please tell us about who you are and the members of your family.
So I'm Rad, or Radford Callan. I go by he, him, and I am one part of our family, I guess. I'm the papa or the dad to 3 kids, one of whom I gave birth to all on my own, and the other 2 happily came into my life at younger ages.
I'm Christina Avery. I am the matriarch of this family.
Love it.
I'm 43, and Rad forgot to mention that he's 35. So Cougar Town a little bit. And when I met him, I had 2 kids from a previous relationship. And so they are now 18 and 15. The oldest is like a cis boy, and the middle one is a trans boy. And then our baby Wilder is 2.5 now. And since half of our family ended up being trans, we decided to just say fuck it and not assign them a gender at birth. So they go by they, them right now until they tell us otherwise.
That makes perfect sense to me. And I think that is becoming more and more common. Do you find that you are not, it's not every day, but you don't find that you're necessarily an anomaly when it comes to not assigning gender to your child and letting them sort of have a voice once they get old enough to do that?
I think Kingston is still a little bit small town to not have encountered that very much. However, in our very first kind of school class that we went to with Wilder, there was one other parent there who had a child as well that she and her partner were also raising non-binary. So that for us was a really special connection to make, for sure.
Yeah, and we also know somebody currently who has a child they're raising with unassigned genders. So at every time we've known somebody else who's doing it. Though when we were in the hospital, it was still a bit not all of the forms that we filled out when they were born we were able to do that. Like on some of them they just insisted. So there are still parts that maybe need to change or work a bit obstacle-y.
Right. And so how do you handle that as parents? Do you just cross things out and sort of with a red pen make a statement that it's not okay to ask this question or to make this assumption or have this requirement because that's not fair to our family? Or do you just sort of put your head down and fill it out to the best of your abilities and hand it back and then just let them know that it wasn't okay later on? How do you navigate that?
I think we kind of did the head down approach, to be honest.
Hmm.
It was just all so early on, and it felt like
Hmm.
there were so many forums before we were able to get out
Yeah.
of there.
Yeah.
Um, but to the best of our ability on the forums that we were able to write that on. Um,
Okay.
I don't even know. I don't even know if I filled
Yeah,
out forms
Rad.
or
I'm sure it was me. And Rad, he had a really rough end of his pregnancy, so like it was a bit of a blur postpartum. And he was quite ill, so we just did
Oh,
it. Just like at the time, it perspective wise, it just like wasn't important.
yep.
And we still to this day choose who we engage with on this. I was very hesitant actually about lots of parts of our pregnancy and conception, and choosing not to raise our child without assigned gender, just because there's like not really a blueprint for it, like we're taking this thing and we're doing something really really different, like
Hmm.
really different. So
Hmm.
that I was quite fearful of just like every single interaction being like a confrontation, or just like it's taken many years to unpack how I view gender, and I'm not able to consume all that and give it to somebody at the grocery store, you know?
Hmm.
So there's definitely lots of circumstances where whatever they say, your baby's cute, I'm just like,
Hmm. That it's it's very true that it is a lot. It is very new. You are figuring out parenting this child all by itself, how often it needs to eat and feed and sleep and all of the things. And then you have this other piece that's different than everybody else. And for some reason, people think they have the right to know your story, whether they know you or not. So they ask you invasive questions that are, you know, that can be triggering for people, and have them asking even further questions that, like you say, do you really want to try and provide years worth of research in a few minutes of conversation while you're picking up potatoes, right? Like
yeah.
it is difficult. How, within the dynamics of your family, you have other kids that are older and they do understand more about binary. Probably, I'm just going to make assumptions here, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking about kids in my life that are similarly aged to your older children who have far more experience and understanding and just acceptance, but it isn't that they've had to accept it. It's just built into them because it's part of their everyday vernacular, binaries and genders and spectrums of gender and everything else. Is that how you felt it to play out in your own family dynamics, that this is just how we're going to do things because this is just how the family is? Did they just sort of get it and understand it right off the hop without any hesitation?
Yeah, I think so. I think in particular our son who's trans
Hmm.
um welcomed the idea and had expressed at one point wishing that that could have been his, he could have had that opportunity to be brought up that way. So that seemed to make sense. And then the oldest has already had a brother who's transitioned, so for him it was really seemed like, pretty natural.
Hmm. It feels like it's part of a conversation all around the world all of the time. And I feel like it's really people my age, and I'm older than both of you, but I think it's sort of the late 40s through to probably early 70s. And then beyond that, most of them say to me, I don't care. You just be happy and do what makes you happy. But it's sort of my age range, Gen Xer maybe, who's kind of thinking, I just don't understand all of this. And I feel like I need to understand to make the world make sense. But the generations coming behind me are like, sit down, old lady. Like, we got this. It's not a big deal. And I think that is just so hopeful. for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah, it's just like not a big deal, or it's like cool, whereas like I would say like boomers specifically would be more worried about us like harming our children
Mm-hmm.
because they've grown up with such, like people born in the 50s grew up with such strict gender binaries and
Mm-hmm.
categories that you just had to fit in. Like even when our mothers grew up, like there wasn't, I think it was like 1975 that women could have credit cards. So like it's still very new that women had any kind of right. So just the idea that you can choose your gender, like no,
Mm-hmm.
like there's just something inherently like dissettling about that.
Yeah.
But often like the easiest retort to you could be damaging your children is like, well, you know, out of half of our family, half is transgender and they were both raised, with a gender binary. So we know how it works out. And like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to
Mm-hmm.
unpack that. It takes years and years and years to unpack being forced into a different box than you're supposed to, or you don't need a
Mm-hmm.
box, but um
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But you're right. And so then now you have the opportunity to have a child who's being raised without that assignment. So hopefully there'll be less for them to unpack later on. I mean,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it is still fairly new in terms of numbers of people who have made this parenting decision. So it's hard to know the impact going down the road. But what you're trying to do is have the least negative impact on your child as you could possibly have from this perspective.
And just like respect their autonomy and their ability to understand concepts and not need to be told what they like and what they want to play with and what they can do for a career, or like, just like you just
Yeah.
be you and like the things that you like. And
Yeah.
if you find something that is relatable as far as gender goes, awesome, we will celebrate that with you. It might change, it changes for lots of people,
Sure.
so you're not stuck anywhere, just with a little bit more freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is exceptionally respectful parenting that you're providing to your child. And I just think that first of all, let's celebrate that um, your child's lucky that you're willing to do that for them and you're willing to parent the way that you are. And I understand it's because of lived experience that you've made this decision, but I still think it's pretty amazing. You have three children between you, and Christina, did you birth the first two children yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Married. I met somebody in the military, um and I was really young. I was like 17 when we met, and I had my first child by 24, and then my second one a little bit later. And I was living in Texas at the time and was just really isolated. I've never even met any queer people. Like I just
Mm.
was just so not, or like I went with to college with some, but just like was not part of queer culture at all. And then came back to Canada and met some queers, and just like as soon as I was around queer people, it was like, oh, that's what's wrong. Um, and so exited my relationship and was very sure that I was done having children. I spent lots of years as a single mom. I'm really poor, and it's just like it was kind of like a trauma filled time, and I really kind of associated it with having young children, and it was just like
Mhm.
didn't ever feel like I'd be able to go through it again because it was so hard.
Fair. And so were the two of you together when Rad you conceived the child you birthed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I mean, Christina, you've said that you had sort of felt like you were finished having children, didn't want to have children. Was it something that you always wanted to do, Rad, was carry a child? Or was it that you knew that you had parenting in you and you wanted to parent a child yourself? And Christina has kind of said that door's closed, so you just investigated your own options.
I wouldn't say that I had always wanted to, but I would
Mhm.
say, um, I guess probably in my early or mid 20s, the idea sort of started coming up for me.
Mhm.
And then I guess probably we met around that time.
He hadn't transitioned at that point. So
Okay.
the idea was quite a bit simpler, or like more of a straightforward idea than after he had transitioned.
Fair. And that does play a role, I'm sure, in terms of finding care, because it adds another layer to it when once you start to transition. It's one thing to find a care team who's open to working with two people who have uteruses who are cisgender presenting. But then you have to find a care provider who is comfortable with working with a trans individual and not feeling like you are there first, that you don't kind of want them to have a little bit of comfort with it so that you're not feeling all the time like you're teaching them all the things.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, that was the exact experience.
Right, of course. Of course. And I mean, and good that they were open to learning, I suppose, because we want them to learn and they have to learn somewhere. But sometimes, and this is part of why I put this podcast together, is to help bring queer professionals on and talk about the roles that they play and things like that, because there's something about walking into a room and going, okay, you're already queer, so you at least understand some of what I'm coming in here with. I don't have to explain that part of myself to you.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, and you're in a community where there's a teaching hospital too. So were you asked to be a learning opportunity for people? And if they were, did you have the opportunity to say no, you weren't comfortable with that?
Um, I believe my memory is a little rough on this, so bear with me, but I believe that I had been asked, and was able to say no when I felt that I wasn't willing um to engage with that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we had hired on a birth doula.
Good.
Well, so she I guess gave me lots of tools as to how to go through things if I had to go to the hospital, um, which wasn't my initial desired plan, but as I guess we know, nothing usually goes by plan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do feel like and that I was empowered to say no when I needed to, at least for that. I was also very much so on my own because it was during COVID, so it was kind
Oh,
I had to go in and face all of these sort of like obstacles all on my own too. So that part was a little bit tricky, but yeah, I don't know.
I will like yeah, that was definitely an obstacle. Rad's quite an introvert, so I think a lot of times I'm the mouthpiece for us both, which is both good and bad. But I think that in some ways it was advantageous. Rad had man, he had a really eventful pregnancy. One of the things was debilitating migraines in his kind of middle pregnancy,
oh,
and he would just have them for like weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. And so he got really like exemplary care by like prenatal migraine specialist kind of things.
oh,
If we were in any kind of other community, I don't believe and he was seeing someone within a week or two, so just like really specialized medicine. um and he was able to just like it seemed like they were using really new techniques that were supplements and things versus like medications that he's been given his whole life, and they had an immediate effect. Like he it was really helpful to him. So in that way, we were very fortunate that we were close to a teaching hospital.
excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing altogether when you're going through pregnancy and after you've conceived and all of the ups and downs and journey to get there. But then when you've got obstacles that come up throughout the pregnancy that can really level you, like a migraine is no joke. A
Yeah.
migraine for a day is no joke. A migraine for weeks. Uh, you had to have yourself questioning sometimes why you were doing this, feeling so crappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oy.
And just like because he had so many hospital visits, there was, there's so many medical professionals that you have to interact with, and each one of those interactions is a chance for somebody to fuck it up, to read the file wrong, or to, as the people checking in, insist that he was going to the wrong floor.
Mhm.
So it's just like every stage of that was a chance for him to feel real bad,
Yeah.
so I would say that like the chronic illness and trans part of it did make that part complicated.
I'm sure, and I didn't even think about it from that perspective, but you're right. When you have something going on, you're seeing not just your care team for the pregnancy, but you're seeing other care teams. And so you're outing yourself repeatedly all the way through, which level adds a whole additional level of stress to the whole journey as well. And you're trying to enjoy the fact that you're going to be having a human that you wanted to meet, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be a lot.
Yeah, sure was.
I also ended up having like hypertension during pregnancy, so that was another sort of I guess by the end of it, it was sort of almost every other day or so that I would be in and out of the hospital. Where eventually it got to the point that a lot of the people on the the ward would know me at least. So it would just sort of be like, "Hey, Rad, you're here again." Like, "Oh, good to see you. How's it going?" So, that part kind of got familiar, but there definitely were always encounters, just different COVID protocol at the front desk, having to get in through people that weren't necessarily trained on how to be LGBTQ friendly and receptive. Kind of guiding and directing people to floors and where they had to go. So a lot of questioning as to whether or not I knew that I was a man headed to the maternity floor, and what that would look like. So that part was definitely a challenge. And then, even further getting into the hospital more, and having to say that you're getting blood work done for this, and them just sort of questioning why you'd be having that done. And sometimes you just go in there and you just have a blank stare, and you're like, that's kind of your only way to get through it. And sometimes it goes smoothly, but yeah, it's a wild ride.
It's an interesting concept because from the trans individuals I've spoken with in the past, and certainly I'm not trying to speak for them, the words that they have used with me have been that it has always been their dream to pass as a trans individual and not have their gender questioned. Someone looks at you, we'll use you as an example, and says, okay, well, that's Rad, that's a man, and not have that questioned. And then you go through something like this, and it's like, now I'm passing too much because now they're questioning, do I even know where I am supposed to be and why I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing these things? That's gotta muck with your head a little bit.
Yeah, it was kind of all right, I guess. Christina was quite worried that it would be very negative and a rough pregnancy to go through.
Mm-hmm.
That I just didn't really know what to expect. But I don't know that. I feel like for the most part, well along the way, people just assumed that I was a really heavy set uh, guy, like a beer drinking, kind of character. Um, and that, yeah, I think kind of worked to my advantage for not having to deal with too much backlash from people. We with the hypertension, I couldn't do much exercise, so we partook in aquafit for a time.
Oh, there you
Which
go.
which was quite a time. So we would go in typically and do our little workout with a class of typically older ladies, and then there's just me bobbing along in the water too, trying to have a little workout. And that was kind of that. And I don't really ever remember any looks or anything specifically from that. Just and then it just sort of dropped off once I had Wilder anyway. So yeah.
I love, they probably just love that these young folks are coming out to join their class with them, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that they thought he was pregnant, but I do he's quite oblivious, but there were like, we did get some sideways looks, but they were very much like they just couldn't compute, you know. They wouldn't have thought he was pregnant, but also he looked pregnant. So it was
Right.
and he's like quite small as a person, so when you put another person in a person, you can tell on a very small one. And so then we went back to do a baby class maybe a couple months later, and they were the looks then when it was confirmed that it was indeed a baby and I was indeed not pregnant.
Right.
That was pretty priceless.
I bet. And those are the moments that you have to just find the humor in, because it's the levity that moves us forward through life, right? We can't lose ourselves in some of the crappy stuff. So you created a little bit of a mess with the brain for them for a few months, and then they got to put it together. So that's entertainment for everyone.
Yeah, and then once the baby's there, no one's gonna say anything weird. Like our baby was so adorable. No one could say anything but gasp in awe.
Oh, of course. As they should. As they should. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. A topic that did not come up while we were recording, but that has come up over the years frequently when I'm speaking with expectant parents and new parents, is induced lactation. And Christina did experience induced lactation when Rad was carrying their child. And so I'm going to inject that particular piece, that recording that Christina sent me after the fact, because I think that it's important to hear that perspective. Additionally, at the end of the episode, I'm going to pop in a quick note that Christina included about queer camp, and a queer camp for adults, as well as queer camp for kids. So lots to listen to here.
The first thing that maybe I'll go into is induced lactation. So it was really appealing to me for my trans partner to carry our child, because I didn't want to do pregnancy or childbirth anymore. And but one of the things that I'd really enjoyed from parenting previously had been breastfeeding my kids, and I had liked it so much that I had been going to La Leche League meetings, which is like a kind of like just like a parent-to-parent support group for chest feeding, and I had become a leader in the time that I was a parent, so I was just like really pro breastfeeding and pro breast milk, and just for lots of reasons I wanted to do it, especially because I wasn't gonna birth them and was hopeful that I would still have like a really good bond with them. So I followed the Gold Farm protocol. We can maybe put that in the note. So I followed a standard protocol for inducing lactation, in which you take birth control pills, and then to kind of trick your body into thinking that you're pregnant, and then you stop those and you start taking domperidone and you start pumping with a electrical hospital grade pump. So I did all those things. I don't know that I necessarily got the right birth control pills. I think that you needed ones that ceased your bleeding, and the kind I took were free from my doctor's office, and they didn't do that. So I think maybe I messed that part up, but otherwise I did the protocol, and you pump around the clock to kind of trick your body into thinking that a baby is there, and then when the baby's born, you kind of put the baby on, and then you're breastfeeding, which is how I assumed it would go. One of the biggest indicators of breastfeeding success is literally just believing that you can do it, and visualizing yourself being able to produce milk, and just like unshakable belief that I had that. So I had no doubts at all that I would be successful at inducing lactation. Now, the thing that they say about inducing lactation is that success is you have to really kind of change how you think about success, because the whole goal is just like you getting to bond and chest feed with your baby, and if you get to do that at all, then you've been successful. So that's kind of like the first baseline, is that there's no like success or failure. It's like anything at all that you can get to your baby is
wonderful, successful, you're amazing. So that's really hard for me because I'm a perfectionist. And I didn't actually end up producing a lot of milk. And I was so sure that I was going to, and I just didn't. I only ever got a little bit. And Wilder, who's our child, would nurse, and we did nurse, but there wasn't really any milk coming out. So I'd get like an initial letdown of like a little bit, some squirts, and then that was it. That was all that ever came. So initially they had jaundice, and so we went after kind of like a traumatic birth. We were right back in the hospital with a newborn during COVID, and we had a really traumatic experience with that. And just like I wasn't making enough breast milk to flush the jaundice from their body, so we had to supplement with donated breast milk. And this is the part where we formed this wild network of donors all over Ontario, and we would drive all over to pick up these big stashes of breast milk that we had found through various like milk sharing boards on Facebook. And yeah, we just like met some really interesting people and got beautiful liquid gold for our baby, even though I didn't end up really making any. So we ended up doing combination feeds of breast milk and just like nursing on me, but like not really. So like initially nursing on me to kind of keep my body working, and then would finish with a bottle of donor milk. And so that's kind of what we did for the first year. And then interestingly enough, so they were never really interested in nursing the first year. And then as soon as we stopped giving them donor milk, because obviously it was so hard to get, that they started, and they didn't need that milk for like nutrition, and they started eating enough, they really got into nursing again. And even now, as a 2.5-year-old, they are really pumped to nurse. And we have a active nursing relationship. It's just weird. It's just such a different experience that I've had with my older children who, you know, you start off really intense with your nursing and then you kind of would fade out a bit more. But this one went completely opposite. It was really like nothing. And then, okay, I guess we are breastfeeding. So I still don't really make any milk, but it doesn't matter to them much. They just like the comfort of it. You know, and now as one does, you get to the stage where like, and I'm done with this. So the induced lactation was really interesting. If I were to go back, I don't know if I would do it again. Which is such a strange thing to say because I really do feel so strongly about breastfeeding. But it was a lot. It was a lot on my body to put all those hormones in there unnecessarily. And the domperidone that you take is a pretty intense drug. And while I was taking it, news came out about just like some really intense mental health stuff that can happen when you're coming off of it. And I was on it on really high doses. So, you know, that was really concerning. And then the other thing is like weight gain. And I hate this part of it, but I've just worked so hard about body image stuff and really feel so loving to other people's bodies, and no matter what shape they are, and yet somehow my own, when I put on 50 or 60 pounds, I just had so much trouble with that. And so I kind of went through this big hormonal journey and put on a bunch of weight, and then didn't get the breastfeeding experience that I was hoping for. Because I don't know that nursing a toddler is necessarily my favorite part of breastfeeding. They're big and demanding. So, yeah, so if I were to go back, I don't know if I would do it again, knowing how abundant donor milk was and knowing how nice still a bottle feeding relationship can be. Yeah, so that's our experience.
So, Christina, I know how you arrived at your first two children, and then Rad, you carried this child. How did you decide how you were going to conceive wilder? Did you find a known donor? Did you use an unknown donor? Did you use an undisclosed or a disclosed at 18 years donor?
So our how did we figure this out? We ended up um asking my best friend, who I've been best friends with since grade one, if her husband would be interested in being the donor. And he had no issue with that. And my best friend is pretty much like my sister. She's just been with me through everything, all of my coming out and transitions and different housing situations and stuff. So um, she's like as close as it gets to family to me, without being family. So for me, that connection um, seemed inevitable. That seemed like the only option. I'm blonde hair, pretty much blue eyed, white fellow, and her husband is also. So it was, as Christina likes to refer to it, sort of like a designer baby. We kind of got to put it in, see kind of what shakes out, but having a pretty good idea, and it's practically just a little carbon copy of myself. So
Oh,
that's pretty great.
cool. That
Yeah.
is pretty cool. And were you able to use it any kind of a like a mosey baby or something insemination kit at home, or did you go through the process of finding a fertility clinic that you could go to?
Yeah, this is a really funny story, and it gets quite personal. So I'm happy to get into it, but I would rather Christina share it because she's just the experienced storyteller. So
Perfect. And share only what you're comfortable with, but
yeah,
I'm all
yeah,
ears.
for sure,
So
for sure.
let me have it.
It's fun, and it's part of our story, and we like to share it too.
Yeah,
So.
we've also decided like someday that he's consented to like letting it be in a book, should I ever get there. So
Perfect.
but I also sold sex toys for 9 years, so I would say that I'm not uncomfortable um giving lots of details. So edit out whatever you need
Okay.
your audience. Um, but it was a bit complicated because the people that we were getting the sperm from live in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
So we live in Ontario, and their family lives where we live. So a few times a year they do travel back. Um, but we are traveling caterers, wedding caterers. We do vegan food, so we're kind of like a small handful of people that specialize in this. So we do find ourselves traveling a lot to weddings and then different festivals in the summer. So we're very busy, and it's really hard, just with like big contracts that we can't get out of that are not very ovulation friendly. So they were essentially coming to where we live for a month and a couple of days. So if we didn't want to have to figure out the logistics and expense of shipping sperm, we were gonna have to get it right. we had one chance, and if we were very, very lucky, we had two chances. And so the first time we had a really hard time meeting to connect with the sperm. So one of the times it was in a public park. They were in a car, and we were in another car, just waiting for him to finish. And then we tried with drugstore syringes. And the thing that happened was it wasn't a huge amount, and it got stuck in the straw. So you've got about 15 minutes when it's fresh that you really have to get it in there. So I ended up having to put my mouth on the straw and blow it. to make sure that it got to its destination.
Yeah.
Um,
That's really your only option. To be fair, it's
the
really your only
only
option.
It's more valuable than gold. What
Yeah.
will you do in that moment?
I just
Yes.
sat there telling her, you have to do it. You gotta just gotta blow in it. You gotta blow it out. And
Oh, I
she
could
was
just see the two
just
of you.
so reluctant, and like laughed initially, and then I just kind of kept being like,
You really
No,
do
do
have
it.
to
Like,
do
really do
I
it.
don't know how else we're gonna get it out of there. So you kind of, and she was just like, "Oh, you're serious? We got to do this." So
Yeah.
that was that time.
I mean, I was pretty sure of my queerness, you know? So it was like a
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
so that time didn't work. Which we got so lucky we got a second chance, but it was the day they were leaving. So
no pressure.
They also have two kids of their own,
Okay.
that were quite young at the time too. So it was just like this navigating of our two kids and where to put them, and then their two kids and how to make these like time slots kind of work.
Yep. Yeah.
So like
that
that
makes
first
sense.
time it didn't work. It seemed kind of rushed. And then the second time they were leaving, and I had been tracking Rad's ovulation, but we had not got a positive on an ovulation test. So as far as we knew, he wasn't ovulating, but I was like, we are expecting it at some point in the next week or so. And they were leaving the next day. So it was like, this is our last chance for sperm. And then the next time it was like, we were going to have to ship it across the country. And just like, it just probably wouldn't have happened. So, so they came over and it was their last night and they were going home, and they were in our living room, and then they kind of gave it to us and left. We used the Mosey baby this time.
It was like a lot cuter though this time. We didn't I think this time was like a lot more like a date and like a lot sweeter. So I think we played like Jenga or something.
Yeah, or like crazy 8 countdowns in front of the fire, and like had some really nice chats and like really laid out our like boundaries and wishes for this kind of situation, and like really like it was like we solidified everything and made sure no one had any questions, that we felt really comfortable with what we were going into, and just like it seemed like that piece of like just making sure that everyone was super on board, and also just like all getting together as these two units to like, we made this child, but we also had a really nice night about it, you know?
Good. That probably brought stress levels down. And when cortisol levels are lower, then other things can do what they need to do, right?
Yeah.
So, wow.
Yeah, so that was really great. And then still no positive ovulation test, but we're like, well, I guess we're inseminating anyway. This is our last chance. And then they left and we hit the road the next day too. And I think we were out on a ledge somewhere in the Thousand Islands, and Rad is taking an ovulation stick, and he's naked because he had just went swimming in the river, and he's kind of feral, and so he's like taking this ovulation kit, and then it lights up, and it's like, you're ovulating, and so, or like, it's almost time, and so I was like, well, you know, this could happen. It can last for 5 days. So if you're starting now, like, we have kind of 5 days. So it could. And it worked.
Yay.
Yeah.
And what is the relationship ongoing with your donor? Do their kids know that he was a donor, and will Wilder know who the donor is, or?
Yeah, I think we're both okay with that. I'm their son's godfather, and then their Wilder's godparent as well. So
in a non-religious way.
Fair. No, and it's funny. I understand that this statement is rooted in religion, but I never think of it that way. So, but thank you for clarifying, because there'll be people who listen who do think of it in that perspective.
Yeah.
So that so they refer to me as Uncle Rad. And then we call them, like by their names as well. So that's
Yeah, like we
pretty
call them
special.
cousins.
Right.
We could call them dibblings.
Right. You could.
We I think we'll be about as open as you can be about it.
Mhm.
There's not I don't think any of us that it's a secret. Like right now it's not like public, but
Right.
I don't think that that we would be sad if anybody kind of found out.
Right. I mean, it's more people to love Wilder at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's not a bad thing at all. And were you able to go about it without needing to sign any legal paperwork or anything else? Like it's just you just had a friend who loves you dearly, and because they love you dearly, they shared something beautiful and miraculous with you, as
Yeah,
it
we
turns out.
kind of made like a not a formal, not formal document
Right.
ourselves. Just sort of like wrote, our own sort of things on it.
Hmm.
We didn't get it legally, like, formally signed or anything like that.
Right.
Here's a document for you. Here's a document for us. But um, we were both quite upfront with what we were looking for, and I feel
Right.
like
And we have no worries. They're going after another kid. They've got two already.
Right. They're busy enough chasing
Yeah.
around the two they have.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
They're fools.
I want to spend, and you've touched on it very briefly, but you do a lot of really amazing work, the two of you, outside of being the parents that you are, which I am so grateful that you were willing to come and sort of talk to me about that part. But I'd like to know a little bit more. I'd like to have listeners know a little bit more about who you are professionally and the work that you do in your community, because you do a lot of work for the queer community and for just the well-being of people around you. And I'd like people to know more about that.
well, we are plant-based caterers. Our name is Knifey Spoony from Kingston, Ontario.
We met and fell in love when we were working at a Kingston icon called the Sleepless Goat Workers Cooperative. And it lived on, oh man. So when I moved to Kingston, I was like a straight-laced, white bread, like Canadian military wife. And then all of a sudden I started hanging out at this vegetarian vegan cafe with all these queers and all these anarchists and all these people that did things and talk about things like prison abolition, and they fed free soup to homeless people in our community. And it gave us a chance to meet and interact with and befriend people that don't have homes, and that so really in us was the Sleepless Goat. And when it closed, it left a hole in Kingston for any kind of vegan food. It was the only place that had it at the time, and it was devastating. um and so we worked, I had really wanted to go to culinary school, but I was a single mother, and at the time there was nothing anywhere close to me to do that, and it just was not in the cards. And so I needed to get restaurant experience. I knew that there was this hole, but I didn't want to work with meat. And so the Sleepless Goat had been a chance to kind of do that. And then when it closed, Rad and I both went off to do other things. He worked as a pasta chef at a fancy Italian restaurant, and I worked at a barbecue restaurant that was also like quite upscale and nice, but it was very brisket heavy. And so after a year or so, we got just like a lot of inquiries. Like somebody was getting married and wanted a vegan caterer, and they were, did anybody know anything? And a group I was part of was doing this vegetarian festival in Kingston, and they wanted us to teach a cooking class, and also they wanted us to have a booth, so why don't we start a business? And so they really kind of encouraged us to do it. And it just seemed like all the stars were aligned to make the leap to try. So on a very shoestring budget, we just kind of jumped right in. And yeah, and so we've been operating since 2017. And we've had really some incredible career highlights. We've been so fortunate for the doors that kind of food has allowed us. We've got to meet some of our allow me to name drop for a second, but we got Laura Jane Grace, who's Rad's absolute idol. She used to front a band called Against Me, who and at the time was like one of the few out trans folks. And so they came through Kingston and we offered to feed them, and we got to hang with the band and like feed them our food, and it was just like an absolute dream. Also Basha Bulat, who's someone we really love, we got to do the same thing. So we got to make friends with Biv Naked. So we've got to do a lot of things through food. That's really great. But one of our goals has always been just like, we want to build our platform so that we have a voice to speak. And I guess like even out the privilege that we have. Because we've had some really lucky breaks. Just personally, we got a somewhat dilapidated but still nice house right downtown Kingston by a beautiful park for just an unheard of price. And then the housing market exploded. So like I can't even, we just have a place to live. Like that alone in Kingston in the housing crisis right now is just like that alone means that I feel like we owe the world something, that we have this beautiful thing where we can raise our family, and then there's just other people that have nothing, and it's just dumb luck, you know. It's not because of anything else, and so I feel like we owe it to the world to even that out. And there's so much work that needs to be done. And like we have a vegan food business because there's so many problems that vegan food can address. So like greenhouse gases, like 90% are just our diet, and our health, there's so many different health problems that are just diets high in saturated fats, like heart disease and diabetes, like from a public health standpoint, and then also just from like a like fun, like our like sustainable healthcare monies. Like all of those things are issues that affect us all. And so, you know, eating food lower on the food chain, closest to its natural state, is, you know, the solution to so many problems. There's also ethical stuff. There's just so much intersectionality that you can address just by eating plants. And you don't have to do it all the time. You can just do it sometimes, and we can show you how. So Rad has chef training and brings like incredible innovative techniques and a real obsessive drive to get it right to the things that he creates. So he's really creates like some really high-end foods that we're so proud to serve. My love is baked goods, and I feel like vegans always get the short end of the stick when it comes to desserts. So kind of I obsessively just want to always have something sweet and delicious to eat that doesn't feel like an afterthought. So, you know, that's why we're here, is like we're also foodies. Like we love to talk about food, and we love the scene that we're in. So that part is really fun, but we get to talk about a lot of things that are important. I feel like my motivation is mainly environmental, but there's just so much that's happened in the time that we've had our business, and all of it is required talking about, I guess. I said to somebody recently, what are we supposed to do during a genocide? Just show up and sell sandwiches? So like we do, yes, but we also talk about it.
Use your platform to talk. And
all our systems, all our food systems, all our media systems, our universities that in Kingston pay our bills, they're all complicit in genocide, and us working with them makes us complicit too. And so in order to balance that out, like we can't stay in business if we don't take these contracts from this university, but also they really suck and these policies suck. So in order to like suck the least, we have to address it, and we have to talk about it, and we have to use it as a chance to hopefully create even one iota of systemic change in our lifetime. That's it. What else are you gonna do, you know?
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I tell people how they can find you and find out about you and find out, and you know, if they happen to be in an area that you serve, how can they, do business with Knifey Spoony?
You can do business with Knifey Spoony if you're getting married and you like high-end plant-based food. We travel all over for that. So you could find us that way, but you can find us at knifeyspoony.com or on Instagram, where we post all of our sassiest stuff. It's Knifey Spoony Kingston. And yeah, those are the places. We do farmers markets every Sunday. We work out of a Memorial Center farmers market, and anyone traveling through Kingston should check it out. It's the best local producers. It's the coolest local farmers. There's almost always a fiddle going. It's a really good place to be.
Excellent. Can you give me quickly the address for that one so I can put that in the show notes too?
303 York Street, Kingston, Ontario. We also have a bunch of products in local stores like vegetarian seitan meats, and Rad hand makes fermented cashew cheese that's incredibly outstanding.
Love that. I want to thank you both so much for taking the time to chat with me this afternoon and sharing both your story of family creation, but also your story of business creation with me, so that people can hear not only about how you went about creating the family you've got, but also just the work that you do in the world to make the world a better place. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. This was so nice to talk about and to meet you.
Yes, you too.
And thank you for the work you do. Our community is sure better for it.
Thank you. As promised, I'm going to throw in this one last clip that Christina sent me about Queer Camp that she had wanted to speak about when we were recording, but forgot because we had too many other amazing things we talked about. So stay tuned for that little piece here.
So Queer Camp is the next thing that I would love to add on, because we are so excited about Queer Camp. It came to us in a very serendipitous way. We have a 15-year-old trans kid, and they had been involved with Camp Rainbow Phoenix, which is, I think the Durham region. And they have had so much fun going to summer camp, and I was so jealous of all the things that they were going to get to do. And we were just saying, I wish there was this for adults. And then literally no sooner than we had said that, we were fed a queer camp. And it was this adult queer summer camp that sounded too good to be true. There were things like you could get tattoos, you could do yoga, you could do stand-up paddle boards down a lazy river, you could go into a wood-fired sauna or hot tub, you could stay in a glamping tent, you could see drag queens, and on and on and on and on. Just so many incredible things. And so we reached out and asked if we could help with food in any way, or if there was any way that we could be involved, because it just sounded so cool. And essentially we just made immediate best friends with the organizers and have been to every queer camp event since. So there's a big summer camp the weekend of June 15th. Usually 100 plus campers and meets in the Georgian Bay area, I believe. And it's at this Elephant Thought Eco Retreat, and it's just spectacular. It's so nice. And it's very friendly for families. They really want to encourage everybody at every life stage to come. So there's queer elders and lots of youth, just every age and demographic is welcome and encouraged to come. So for the summer one, we just went as adults. And then to the fall ones, we took our kids, and we just had the best time. We made some incredible memories and
just like it's such a wonderful group to get involved with for anyone that's looking for more queer community. It's just really invaluable and so incredibly supportive. So I encourage everybody to go check it out. I believe that registration is going to open right away, and you'll want to be there. It's just so great.
Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.